Yeah, I finished medical school 29 years ago.
Okay, and where did you go to school?
University of Kansas.
Kansas. Mm-hmm. You're from there, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How did you end up in Georgia?
Job. I went to different places. I trained in New Mexico and then was there for almost 4 years, and then came here 17 years ago.
Okay. Okay, do you hear us?
I do.
Loud and clear.
Anytime you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Let's go.
Yeah. How old is a light blue bruise?
It's impossible really to tell. There is no way accurately to determine the age of a bruise by its color. Now, a light blue bruise would suggest that it is relatively recent, but then again, by recent I mean it could be as old as 8, 10, 12 hours or even more, because you can't look at a bruise and tell how old it is from the color. And also bruises like that, these light blue discolorations in the skin, can actually form after death just from moving a body. So there is no way to accurately say how old a bruise is, or based on its color or the fact that it's light blue, or to say when that bruise occurred, whether before death or after death.
The medical examiner in this case says that the bruises were very fresh. Could you, with your experience, say that a bruise is very fresh?
Not really, because with the naked eye, looking at a bruise and looking at its color is terribly, terribly inaccurate. It's not possible. And research has shown over and over again that even highly trained professionals, such as myself, cannot look at a bruise and tell how old it is. Also, the fact that it's well known in forensic medicine that bruises, whether bruises that occurred before death or even after death, can develop or become more apparent and come to the surface of the skin in a body that's been refrigerated for a day or 2 or 3 days. That also tells us that the coloration of a bruise is not an accurate way to tell how old it is. And using a term such as very fresh is actually misleading.
The examiner writes that the bruises have been sustained in close or directly in connection with death. Is that possible to say?
No, that is not possible to say. That is a statement that is, frankly, scientifically impossible to make.
Scientifically impossible?
Yes.
And the Court of Appeal in Sweden, they write that the bruises may have been sustained immediately prior to death. Is that possible to say?
It's not possible to say with the degree of certainty that is necessary, in my opinion, in a criminal case to make judgments. Possibility, yes. It's possible. Anything is possible. Let's put it this way. There are 1,000 possibilities, but to make a statement like that with certainty is not possible to say.
If you were an expert witness in court and you were asked about these light blue bruises on the upper arms, what would you say?
I would say that the location and appearance of these bruises are very typical and characteristic of minor injuries that are sustained when a body is moved, when medical personnel, say, pick up a body and transfer the person from one place to another, and also the same thing, the same type of minor bruises or discolorations occur after death, again in the same way, when a body is picked up and moved and transferred. As forensic pathologists here in the United States, all of us know and understand that these findings are very, very common. We see these over and over and over again, and we know where they come from. So to say that these injuries are something that is the result of a struggle or a fight is not accurate, especially since they're very light blue in color and the location is very typical of minor injuries sustained when people are moved, when bodies are transferred and moved.
Have you seen such bruises?
Hundreds of times, oh yes.
And when you read about these bruises in the examination report, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, first of all, that although certain bruises like this may be seen in struggles, in fights, usually because these bruises, if they occur from a fight or a struggle, are much more severe and much larger in intensity, because it's the result of two people struggling and fighting, and one person grabbing the other person and holding on tight and trying to force them to do something in some way. So they typically, if bruises like this come from a struggle, they're very severe. They're very easy to see. They aren't very faint and light blue. And given the description that the pathologist gives in her report of what these bruises look like, in my opinion, I think what she is describing is merely the effect of picking up this lady, moving her from where she was found to the ambulance, then transferring her body into the hospital, and then moving her body finally to the morgue. Because the upper arms are where orderlies will pick up the body. That's where they will pick up somebody. And it causes these very minor sort of discolorations that come to the surface over the course of a couple of days. So what I'm seeing and reading in the report is not what I would expect at all as a result of a struggle. And I think this is what we call an artifact, or an artificially created finding that is confused or may be confused with a true injury.
Artificially created?
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that it is not a true injury. That is, it's created simply by picking up the body, moving the body, whether alive or dead or both, and can be mistaken for real injuries. That is, for real injuries that are caused by a struggle, or real grip injuries. And that's what I mean by artificially created. That it's something that is not really a reflection of actual trauma, of actual injury, but may be mistaken for actual injury.
What kind of injuries would you expect in a case like this, if it was a murder case?
I would expect much more severe bruising. That is, very large, intense bruises. We also know that this lady was an alcoholic, had been an alcoholic for many, many years. Alcoholics, because of their chronic alcoholism and damage to the liver, will bleed easier and bruise easier. And she was intoxicated with alcohol at the time of her death. And the alcohol actually in your body at the time when you consume alcohol, that actually in and of itself will cause you to bruise or bleed much easier. So usually with alcoholics who are in fights and struggles, they have very, very severe bruising, very profound, large bruises, because of, first of all, the force that is exerted, the force that is put on the arms or other parts of the body during a struggle or during a fight, and the fact that alcoholics will bruise much easier and larger because of the liver damage and the effect of the alcohol on the ability of the blood to clot. The blood just spreads out more because the clotting ability is impaired.